Hi there, I'm Mike, and what I have for you today is Star Wars The Black Series, Amazon exclusive, Emperor Palpatine. Just a few quick notes about the box. It's a normal kind of Black Series box here. He is packaged sitting down, much like Supreme Leader Snoke was in the GameStop exclusive version of that figure. He also has two severed heads displayed on the side of the package, and his severed lightning hands surrounding him. He's sort of a smorgasbord of severed body parts. So what I want to do now is just like normal, I'm going to read the bio on the back of the box while you can look at a picture of him right in front of your face. Scheming, powerful, and evil to the core, Darth Sidious restored the Sith and destroyed the Jedi Order. He slowly manipulated the political system of the Galactic Republic until he was named Supreme Chancellor and eventually Emperor, ruling the galaxy through fear and tyranny. That's my best Emperor Palpatine voice. That's all I got. And here he is out of the package. So as I was kind of playing with him, I was kind of noticing that there were a couple of things that just were sort of familiar to me. So I got out my original Emperor Palpatine Black Series figure that came out in 2015, 2014, somewhere around there. It's been like 4 or 5 years. And as I was getting down into it, I was kind of noticing that they were similar. So as I go through this review, I'm going to be talking about the similarities between these two figures and the differences on top of just reviewing this figure. But I'm also kind of reviewing this figure. So you get 2 reviews for the price of 1. But we're going to mostly keep it with this one because, I mean, this is what you came for, isn't it? So as always, we're going to start with a little bit of history of the figure. This is Emperor Palpatine as he appeared in Return of the Jedi. And I don't even think he's mentioned by name. Was he called Emperor Palpatine in the original package of toy? I don't know, actually. I don't know if it was Emperor Palpatine or just the Emperor. What I do know is growing up in like the, 90s, before the prequels came out, we didn't really know a lot about the Emperor. We didn't know how he came to power. We didn't know really anything more than the fact that he was a bad guy. He was Darth Vader's boss. That's pretty much all you had to go on. So all the backstory with the Chancellor and the Senate and all that stuff, that didn't come until the prequels came into the picture way later. So back when, Return of the Jedi was a thing, that's all we had going on. He was an old bad guy that liked to electrocute people. He was portrayed on screen in Return of the Jedi by Ian McDiarmid. I think I'm saying that right. It was a masterful performance. One of my favorites of the entire series. I'm sure he was in stuff beforehand, but I never really paid attention. Ian McDiarmid is the Emperor, and that's all that matters. So let's jump into the review proper, and I'm going to bring up the other one here for effect here. So looks, that's the first thing. Does this figure in my hand look like how he looks in the movie? And the answer is, kinda. And the answer here is abso-friggin-lutely. So the original Emperor came out, this was before the days of the digital face printing, and the face was fine, the figure was fine, just looks-wise, it's not awful, it's just boring, it's just, there's something missing, it's just like that something that you're not quite feeling. This one, when you look at it in hand, the robe, the face, the paint, everything comes together to just absolutely feel like he walked off screen right into your hand. Hasbro has really knocked this one out of the park, especially in terms of the face department. So on the standard face that the new one comes with, and the only face that the other one comes with, I'm pretty sure they're the exact same sculpt. In essence, this is sort of an archive re-release of this figure. There are some bigger differences than just the face, but we'll get into that. But face-wise, sculpt-wise, it's not different. The facial expression is the same. The only thing that really makes this one stand apart is that digital face printing. It really brings out the life of the sculpt. This one has it, but because of the lack of paint on it, he just looks like a bored old guy waiting to eat and die. This one looks like a vibrant, evil Sith. He still has a lot of life in those eyes. I absolutely love the paint job on this. I love everything about this new figure. Whereas again, this one was just sort of there. It was in your collection or not. So because Hasbro really nailed the look of this one, I'm gonna give it the full point. This one, if I were grading it today, I would give a 0.25. Looks wise, sure, it's passable, but barely. Just barely. Moving on to the accessories. What did they come with and what should they have come with? Let's actually put this one down for a second and talk about the original figure. The original figure came with his walking stick. That's pretty much it. It's actually the same cane that came with the new one. They are identical. The same sculpt and molding. It is one solid piece of molded plastic with no paint on it. It sort of looks gnarled, I guess. I think it's a little flat. It's fine. It's not the best part of this figure by any means. But he does have a stick in the movie, and you know, he should come with one, I suppose. The problem with this one, the original, is that's all he came with. There was nothing else. He came with his stick. This one came with the same stick and so much more. So let's talk about those. On top of his very still admittedly mediocre walking stick, it's not going to win any awards here. Here we have him sitting in his throne, and that is something that even if you made a throne, unless you also severely altered this figure, he could not do because he can't sit. This Palpatine looks fantastic sitting on his throne, which is like what he did 70% of the movie, besides slowly walking from place to place and then electrocuting Luke Skywalker. The throne itself is molded in almost one entire piece of plastic. It's sort of a light matte finish. It's not as glossy as it was in the movie, but that's fine. It still does show fingerprints a lot, and it definitely doesn't have a lot of paint apps on here, but it's a solid black chair, so I honestly don't know what paint apps it should have had other than the ones that it does have. A lot of people are complaining about it. They had QC issues on it. I didn't really have any on mine. The molding is good. It has paint where paint needs to be. It has a silver trim around the top and sides. It has these separate little kind of silvery gray pieces molded into the chair. I don't know what those do. I've always kind of wondered, but not quite enough to look it up. He has molded controls on his chair, and they are painted appropriately. I don't know what those controls do either. I'm assuming one controls the swivel function of the chair. There's probably some sort of vibrate and massage function. I'm just assuming there is. Why wouldn't there be? If you're the emperor of the galaxy, you're gonna have a chair that vibrates and massages. That's just kind of how it works. And if you don't, you're not doing it right. Also, the chair is lined with kind of an actual rubber cushion. The cushion is sculpted onto there, but it is made out of a soft rubber, so you can kind of press down on it. Enough to really kind of comfort and cradle the buttocks and lower back of the Senate. It's just kind of a fun little touch that the seat actually does have a bit of a cushiony effect on it. The chair does swivel if you want it to. I don't really know why it has to, because unless you're gonna glue this thing down, you can just move the whole thing just fine. So between his cane and his throne, those are his physical accessories. The rest are all severed body parts. And let's take a look at those real quick. Number one, he comes with 3 heads. He has the aforementioned head that's on his face. It's the exact same as the original one came with. It's just sort of a neutral expression, and it looks fantastic. To put the other heads on, it's pretty much the same as any other figure you ever had that has a swappable head. The head pops right off with an audible pop, and the new head just kind of pops right back on. Now, the smiling head that we're talking about doesn't fit on so well. At least it doesn't have that definitive popping kind of feel and noise the original head had. I do love this alternate face. He does have a slight smile, like he's just farted and no one can smell it yet but him, and he knows it's gonna be bad. He just sort of has this malicious glee in his eyes. I really like it. I do prefer this head over the original, but it's not my favorite one. My favorite one is actually his snarly, sneering face. I absolutely love this face. The sculpt, the hatred is just oozing right out of it. It just really gets me. The only reason I wouldn't use this one is because I'm probably going to display him sitting on his throne, and I feel like that doesn't really fit what he's doing here. But of the 3 faces, this one is hands down the best one. I love the mouth, I love the teeth, just everything. He just looks so mad. So to sort of go with this, he does come with some alternate hands. Now the hands he comes with are very standard hands. They're the same hands that came on the original Emperor Palpatine. One grippy hand for holding his cane, another pointy hand for pointing at things while he's holding his cane. Alternatively though, he comes with these really cool splayed out electricity hands. And here we have Emperor Palpatine with the sparkly fingers. This is the #1 thing that should have come with the original Emperor Palpatine, but didn't. Hasbro's had other figures that have had electricity hands. So it was weird to me they didn't do that with Emperor Palpatine. And they're paired perfectly with that snarling face. It's just everything I wanted in an Emperor Palpatine figure accessories-wise. The only thing he didn't come with that I really wish he had was his lightsaber. Now I know he didn't use a lightsaber in Return of the Jedi. He did use one in Revenge of the Sith, and obviously he has one. They gave one to Yoda, and now I have a Yoda figure with a lightsaber, but this Emperor Palpatine, no lightsaber. I just wish that I could have recreated that on my shelf, but it's not gonna make or break this. I genuinely love what we got here, so I'm gonna give this the full point. It came with everything I wanted and more. Hasbro truly knocked it out of the park when it comes to accessories here. On the original one though, just coming with a walking stick and a walking stick that doesn't even reach the ground, I'm actually not going to give it any points for that. The accessories and lack of accessories on this original one was one of my biggest gripes of this figure. It's just such a boring figure with nothing but a walking stick, and he's Emperor Palpatine. And let's move on to Articulation. His head moves all the way around. It goes forward this far, back this far. His arm moves up this far. It can move all the way around if you're careful of the robe. He has a double jointed hinge at the elbow and an upper bicep swivel. His wrist hinges this way and it has a swivel. He has an incredible torso swivel. It goes forward this far, back this far. His leg can move forward this far, back this far. He has an upper thigh swivel, a double jointed knee, a hinged ankle, as well as a swivel. And if you hike his skirt up, this is his widest stance with both his feet flat on the ground. The only real difference is that this one isn't hindered by any hard sculpted plastic, whereas this one is. But some areas of note on here is they do have double jointed arms because the robe covers it. Hasbro tends to always give double jointed arms to figures that have their arms covered, which is nice, I suppose. It's nothing to complain about, that's for sure. But the biggest difference is because of that lack of the plastic skirt, they have virtually the same torso joint, but this one has a lot more movement on the front to enable that seated position because he can bend forward a lot further. So it helps out when you're putting him in his chair, and it's a must-have because mine is definitely going to be spending most of his time seated on that throne in my collection. So because of that, I'm going to give him the full point for Articulation. Sure, he doesn't have butterfly joints and some of the newer features that the new ones have, but he's Emperor Palpatine. He's not really supposed to. What he has is fine. I can pull off the poses that I want, and he's not hindered by any kind of extraneous plastic. So I'm gonna give this one a half point. Next we have paint, sculpt, and detail. Now on both of these figures, I have to say, they're pretty dull figures. They're pretty monochromatic. Other than the sculpt of the skin, they're just really dark colors. And on top of that, being mostly soft goods on this one, there's not a lot of detail to speak of. But what there is, I will speak of. I've already talked about the face, but let's talk about the robe. They actually have different outer robes. The hood on the new one is smaller and better shaped than the old one. The old one has these weird big flares that come out the side, and it doesn't really fit on his head that well. There's also flared sleeves on the new one that don't exist on the old one. So I feel like the new one definitely is a little bit better in terms of how it looks on him. The biggest drawback to this new one though is the clasp that holds the robe together at his neck comes off all the time. It doesn't stop coming off. This one I've never had come off once. But like I said, the majority of these figures are the same. His torso sculpt, his arm sculpt, and his leg and boot sculpts are all identical. The same wrinkles, the same folds, the same molding. Nothing's different from basically 70% of the figure, maybe even 80% of the figure is identical. The other big difference besides the robe and obviously the paint of his face and hands is the lack of the molded skirt that this one for some reason had and this one doesn't have. I've never been a fan of hard molded skirts like this. Number one, it hinders if you want to have them sit down. Granted, you can have more detail in this that you are lacking on this, and that is a big drawback to the soft good skirt that this one has. But I feel like you make up for what you can do with it with the lack of the looks that this one has. Plus, if you put this one in any kind of action pose, he's got these sexy skirt splits on the side where his legs can come out. I'm not a fan of that. They do it so it doesn't hinder articulation. I just think it looks silly. Whereas this one, being that it has a stretchy material that it's made out of, you can still get some wide stance poses out of them. It's not really restrictive like a hard molded plastic skirt would be. The other difference though is because this one is a molded skirt, the belt is also molded on. It's a molded feature of the skirt and it's barely distinguishable on here. It just kind of blends in with the plastic. This one, the belt and sash, is actually a separate piece from the skirt and the torso. The downside though is because he's packaged sitting down in the plastic, mine tends to just kind of, like, it wants to kind of bend forward and it gives him sort of a inappropriate look, but it's fixable. You can just heat it up and straighten it out. Mine's gonna be sitting on the shelf the whole time, so I'm not gonna really knock anything against it. The only real problem with this guy is that he is boring looking. Most of the sculpted detail that he has is covered by soft goods. That's just sort of the nature of the figure. But because it's mostly just a kind of reused mold, I'm gonna give this one a 0.75 instead of the full point. This original one though, I'm gonna give it a 0.25. It's not worth nothing, but it's pretty bad. That hard molded skirt is one of my biggest problems with this figure. One of many problems with the figure, but one of my bigger ones. I feel like they're all big problems actually with this figure. It's one of the worst in the line. So lastly, let's talk about want, value, and availability. Is the want there? Absolutely. Emperor Palpatine captured my imagination the moment I saw him the first time I watched Return of the Jedi. This wrinkly old man. How could a wrinkly old man be cooler than Darth Vader? And then next thing you know, he's shooting lightning bolts. That cackle, that voice, Ian McDiarmid just brings him to life. He's one of my favorite Star Wars characters. He's smart, he's powerful. I really like him. And in the extended universe, he had a bunch of like clones of himself, and there's just a lot of things going on there. But I definitely have always enjoyed Emperor Palpatine. It's why I was so sad the original one was so terrible. So it's nice that we got a better one. So it's definitely, the want is there. I want Emperor Palpatine, and I've wanted a new Emperor Palpatine the moment I got the old one. I was so disappointed when I pulled this out of the package. So let's talk about availability. The original one came out, I'm pretty sure, beginning of 2015, mid 2015, somewhere around there. I actually never saw him once in stores. I had to order him off Entertainment Earth, but I had to order a figure set to get him because if I hadn't, I would have never gotten him. And because of that, a lot of people never got him. And he commanded a very high price on the secondary market, which sucks because he's a terrible figure and doesn't deserve it. This new one is an exclusive to Amazon, which traditionally, I hate exclusives. Being forced to visit the store every day to try to get one figure, it's a pain in the ass. Some Walgreens does it, Target does it, Walmart does it. I hate it. But Amazon, not so bad. I mean, I don't have to drive to brick and mortar stores. I just sit on my computer in my underwear and I order them. And I've got Prime shipping, baby. I'm getting that bad boy in 2 days. Now the value. He's a $40 figure. That's twice as much as this one went for. Is he twice the figure? I honestly kind of think so. If he had just come with his cane and this, I would have said no. That's really more of a $30 price point. But the alternate hands and the two alternate faces that are fantastic, yeah, that's worth the extra $10 to me. It really honestly is. I think $40 for this figure is absolutely a good price. For a figure that has been sorely needed in the line, I was very willing to pay that $40 price tag. So I'm gonna give him the full point for want, availability, and price. The original figure, I'm gonna give it 0.25. It was bad. It was real bad. In fact, you know what? No. I'm gonna give it 0 points. 0 points for want and availability. Sure, the want was there that I wanted Emperor Palpatine, but oh God, was it just so awful, and it was hard to get. And when you did manage to get one, you get nothing but disappointment. So the final score of the new figure, I'm gonna give a 4.75 out of 5. The only real gripes I have with this figure, it can be annoying to swap out his pieces. Some of them are pretty tight, and I've had a lot of paint chip, but it's always chipped in places you can't see anyway. So that's not a big deal, but the robe really does kind of bug me. But just a little bit, just 0.25. That's not bad in terms of going from the worst figure in the line to possibly the best figure of the year. It's been a big year for Hasbro. Hasbro's done a fantastic job with this. It's given me exactly what I wanted, and to an almost perfect degree. This little guy can go die in a fire. The only reason I have it in my collection is because I'm a completionist and I'm gonna keep it. But I actively hate the fact that it's in my collection. but it's gonna stay now in the box, and that's gonna go in the garage. So honestly, if you collect the Black Series, if you like the original trilogy, if you have any Imperial figures, I do feel like you owe it to yourself to pick up this new Emperor Palpatine, especially if you have the original one, because this should not be owned by anybody. So that's it for my Emperor Palpatine review. Let me know down in the downstairs area what you thought of it. I'd also love to take a moment to just thank my Patreon supporters for making this review probable. Not possible, I would have done it anyway. But if you don't want to support me on Patreon, that's absolutely fine. There's a bunch of other ways you can. You can do so by sharing, and subscribing to me. That helps out an awful lot. There's also a couple different ways down in the downstairs area. You can send me stuff if you want to. You can purchase something for yourself and use a link to get me some sort of spiff or credit. There's a lot of things that you can do. And that's it. Please do leave a comment below. I love to read and respond to all of those. I had a lot of fun with this toy. I'm very much looking forward to what else Hasbro has in store. That's it. Thanks for getting this far, and I'll see you later. Bye.